What's up, y'all? It's Chris. Here to talk a little bit about HBO last night, a little bit about the fights, a little bit about the fight game, a little about HBO in general. First off, as far as like an HBO caliber card, even for Boxing After Dark, I really didn't think it was that good of a card. I mean, I could have done without the first two fights. The Willie Nelson Suelo fight, it actually ended up being a pretty good fight at times when Suelo was able to catch and hurt Nelson, but I don't know. I don't know if HBO thought that, hey, we got this tall, lanky guy trained by Jack Lowe. Maybe we got the next Kelly Pavlik and Willie Nelson, but that's not the case. I don't know. Willie Nelson, he's got some skills, but I don't really see anything special there. Anything that screams out like world champion. I'm not saying he can't win the title. Not that hard to do in this day with all the titles out there, given the right maneuvering, but nothing special. And then you had Brandon Gonzalez versus I'm just calling him Double O. You know, kind of like they call Gennady Golovkin. Double G. I'm calling this guy Double O because he's got two O's to start his last name. But did they just go off like the record of this guy? I mean, I don't know. I didn't see anything special out of him at all. And Brandon Gonzalez, you know, he fights out of my city. Nice guy. I've got a chance to interview him in the past, but I've never really been too impressed by him. And, you know, I could have just done without this fight. It really was nothing. I mean, it was close at the end. The decision was debatable, but is anyone really going to go back and watch this fight and even score it again? Because I know I'm not. Main event was cool. I mean, you got to see Golovkin just absolutely tear Macklin, break him down, and get him out there in 3 rounds. But HBO was building up Macklin like he was, you know, Sergio Martinez or something. Like, this is going to be Golovkin's first real challenge. And, you know, trying to make it seem like Macklin really was highly competitive against Martinez, which he was to a degree, but he didn't get stopped. HBO was doing a little bit too bit of a hard of a sell job on Macklin, in my opinion, when nobody outside of his fans thought he had a chance to win this fight, and it was proven. But Golovkin looked good, man. I mean, what can you say? The guy is a beast. I mean, just hits dudes, and like they said in Rocky IV about Drago, whatever he hits, he destroys. Pretty much seems to describe Golovkin as of late. As for what's next for him, obviously, I imagine most people would love to see him against Sergio Martinez. I would too, but of course, Lou DiBella, who once called Martinez the most avoided fighter in boxing, is now doing that same tactic. He's going to avoid Golovkin at all costs. Hypocrisy in boxing, go figure. Peter Quillen, that's a good fight. I think that'd be a good little slugfest, barn burner. But Quillen fights on Showtime, so unfortunately, it's not an option. Now, of course, people are talking about maybe Golovkin Ward down the line. Maybe. I would like to see Golovkin. Maybe he has the power to really disrupt Ward. But given Ward's commentary last night during some of the fights, he, outside of when he fights, he promotes a lot of holding and clinching, even with other guys' strategies. I don't want to see him just put the straight jacket on Golovkin. I'd rather see Golovkin versus a Frotch if Golovkin can't get any other big fights. So even though they're different weight classes, I think that'd be a great matchup, make for a great action fight. Speaking of Ward, though, a little too much of him. He's all right on commentary, but HBO's just trying to shove him down our throat. You know, Floyd used to be Mr. HBO, then they were going to try to make Broner that too. Both those guys are over in Showtime now, so now they're trying to make Ward like the face of HBO boxing. He just doesn't have the charisma, the personality, and, I mean, not saying people don't want to watch him fight, but his fights aren't the most entertaining, so you don't need to shove him down our throat. I don't think there's a high demand by fans to see Ward at any opportunity they can get. All right, as for the fight game, first off, the shit was taped. They tried to play off like it was live. Lampley's like, oh, I'm in the studio directly after coming to the fight like they've done before. The show was right after the fight. This was obviously taped. He just said, you know, he insinuated that Golovkin had won his fight, but didn't say how. Then he brings Andre Ward on. Andre Ward is via satellite from the location where they had just been, yet Max Kellerman was in studio. It's just ridiculous. You don't need to act like it's live if it's not live. It's stupid. I mean, who do you really think is falling for that? It just makes it look stupid. There's no point in that at all. You have Chris Mannix on there. I can't stand Chris Mannix. Personal opinion. So hearing him, Jim Lampley, go back and forth. It was interesting. At least they did talk about Floyd Canelo, though. Usually they just try to ignore anything that's not taking place on HBO Boxing. But as far as like the pound for pound list, Lampley's Floyd number 1. Okay, Ward number 2. Cool. Marquez number 3. That's all right. Then you had Vladimir Klitschko at number 4. I guess you can make a case for it. A lot of people don't really put heavyweights in the pound for pound list, but if you wanted to, you can make a case for it. Then he says for number 5, Abner Mars and Leo Santa Cruz are still building their credentials. Abner Mars is still building credentials? The dude's 26-0. He's won titles in 3 different weight classes. He's defeating former champions. How is he still building his credentials? Sure, he's still building his credentials, but he easily could be number 5. Just because he's not on HBO, that's the only reason he didn't put him on that list. If he was fighting on HBO, I guarantee he would have had him on that list. Instead, he goes to Vitaly Klitschko. Basically just a, hey, here's a lifetime achievement. I'm going to throw you on there. Whatever. It's just Lampley's personal list anyway, which is why I was surprised, considering it seemed like it was Lampley's list that he didn't have Pacquiao number 1 still. And then Max comes on there. He has Floyd 1, Ward 2, Rigondeaux number 3. And he made a case for Rigondeaux. He thinks he's one of the best fighters in the sport. He could beat most guys. They're giving him, one of the best fighters out there. I can't put Rigondeaux above Marquez yet. I wouldn't put him above Mares yet. Sure, he beat Donaire, but that's his only real big win. And then Max even had Donaire still at number 4. How are you going to have Donaire ahead of Mares at this point? Just ridiculous. The show should be called HBO's Fight Game, not Fight Game, because it is not a good interpretation or reflection, I should say, of the sport in its entirety. It's a good reflection of HBO boxing and their product and the fighters that they have on their network, but not the sport as a whole. I will give Lampley credit for this. His Gotti list this week or this time was much better than it has been in the past. And he even had Lucas Matisse on there, which, deserve it. So even though Matisse doesn't find HBO, at least he did acknowledge him. But then at the end, he took a shot at the Broner Malignaggi promotion and put up a little article from a quote from Grantland that said something about the networks and the promoters basically supporting Broner Malignaggi's shit, talking about that hood rat that Malignaggi used to smash that Broner picked up the sloppy seconds of, or whatever it is. It was obviously just a cheap shot at Showtime and Golden Boy Promotions. It was lame. Fight fans don't care. Fight fans actually, they don't look at it like, oh, that's disgusting. I can't believe that. Either they're annoyed by it, and they're like, get this bitch off my screen, I don't want to hear about her, or they're entertained by it. That's the way it is, particularly Malignaggi and Broner fans. No one was like, oh, this is disgusting. How could they? Maybe Larry Merchant would be like that, but he's no longer on HBO. Speaking of, Max Kellerman's post-fight interviews with Golovkin and Macklin, terrible. He's been slipping on his post-fight interviews of late. The one with Macklin, he's just kind of like, hope to see you again too. I don't know, man. Maybe, I thought maybe Merchant was getting a little long in the tooth, but the way Max Kellerman's recent post-fight interviews have been going, they might need to bring Larry back. And that's pretty much it. Also, HBO's upcoming schedule. HBO's had a really good first half of the year, let's be honest. Really strong with Bradley Provodnikov, Rios, Alvarado, Stevenson knocking out Dawson. But their upcoming fights, next 3 fights they got coming up, once again, not really stuff I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm paying the premium network price for that or HBO for that. It's funny. With HBO and Showtime having this war now, basically, it used to be that everyone thought that Showtime, not everyone, but a lot of people thought that Showtime had a good product, but HBO had the better fighters because they could afford to pay more. Showtime would build guys up and HBO would take them, or they'd go over to HBO. Now, it's the gap is definitely narrowing. Now that Golden Boy's got all their fighters on Showtime, I think Showtime's getting a stronger overall product. I think HBO is digressing. And when it comes to commentary, man, I've said it time and again, I'm just not a fan of Lampley. I think Max is following in Lampley's footsteps. He's really losing the voice and the opinions he had when he started this sport that kind of gave him more of a casual fan appeal or a hardcore fans appeal rather than being a company guy. And Showtime, I just enjoy watching Showtime more for the most part overall as a broadcast. But that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, now that I got all that out of the way, I just want to talk about it, man. I don't know. I just didn't really, other than Golovkin last night, crushing Macklin, I really just didn't enjoy too much of watching HBO boxing, and I don't know, man. It's just not what it was. I mean, a lot of things you could say about a lot of things, but man, HBO boxing, um, late '90s, maybe early 2000s, it's great, and it's just slipping because of stupid politics and other reasons. All right, what are your thoughts on anything I talked about? Whether it's last night's card, whether it's Golovkin, what's next for him, whether it's the fight game, whether you agree with me or disagree. I don't care, to each their own. If you think I'm being just biased and don't like Lampley or whatever, but feel free to disagree with me. But yeah, that's it for now. Links to Science of Violence and my Twitter and the infrastructure as always. Till next time, I'm out.